Hi everybody, and thank you again for joining me on another episode of Gaffer and Gear. A few episodes ago I reviewed the Electrostorm CS15, but at the time the hyperreflector kit hadn't arrived in the country. So today is a quick follow-up episode. We're going to take a look at the narrow hyperreflector 20 degrees and the wide hyperreflector which is 50 degrees in combination with the CS15. All right, so let's start off with pricing. So the wide reflector sells for $225 US, and I think that's a pretty good price considering the build quality of this thing. It really is very well constructed, and it does have the accessory slot here for the barn doors. So the barn doors for the medium reflector that is supplied with the light will also fit with this. Okay, so $225. Now for $345, you can get the narrow reflector here. So this is 20 degrees, and again, this is built really solid. Now, it does look quite beefy and heavy, but it's actually not. It's reasonably well weighted, so weight isn't going to be a concern, but obviously the size could be a bit of an issue. Now, if you're looking to buy both of these for a little bit more money, for $785, you can buy the two of them in a kit, and the kit comes with a case. Now, the case is a little bit on the big side. So how big is the case? Well, I'm sitting on it, and as you can see, it is huge. Now, the case is beautifully constructed. There's no doubt about that. It has 4 locking caster wheels, padded bumpers, and its insides are molded to fit the reflectors. It's supplied with the wide and the narrow, but it has space for your medium as well as the barn doors, which are supplied with the light. And as you can see, everything fits snug. Alright, so if you're a small-time gaffer like me working out of a van or a box truck, obviously that case is way too big. So can you save space by putting these inside each other? Well, not really. The smaller two will fit individually inside the larger reflector. No problem at all. You would definitely want to put a stack of padding in there though. All right, now here's the closest you can get to getting them all packed together. So if you put the medium over the wide, it'll go some of the way in, and then the narrow will almost fit the whole lot. Okay, but as you can see here, there's a bit of play under there. Now, I wouldn't be keen to pack them this way because I reckon you definitely damage the insides, all right, because there's not a lot of space left in here for a great deal of padding. But so can you stack them inside each other? Not really. Now, I almost forgot to mention that these dishes do have the internal recognition system, but in the interest of doing a fair and honest review, at the point that I'm shooting this episode, the programming for these isn't really up to scratch. The wide and narrow dish are very accurate with their Kelvin, but the color hue hasn't been programmed correctly on the CS15. Now let's see how the wide reflector goes on the CS15. This reflector is claimed to be 50 degrees. Compared to most faceted dishes, it does have a nice even spread, with a little bit of intensity drop off towards the edges. The results are the same regardless of the CCT dialed in. And the results are also the same regardless of the colour. And the shadow qualities, well, they're typical of a faceted dish. Now, where this dish really heroes is outside. As you can see, it's got a very even distribution of light. Now here, bear in mind that the coloured light is overpowering the street lighting. Now the barn doors do fit on this reflector, but they don't really do a lot. Now let's see how it goes as light through a window at a distance of about 5 meters. It has reasonably good shadow qualities, but they're not as sharp as a good Fresnel. And the results seem to be the same regardless of the CCT. Now with coloured light, the shadow quality will vary a little bit depending on the colour dialed in. Now these colours don't look all that bright, but bear in mind this is directly competing with ambient daylight. Now let's take a look at the narrow reflector. Now the one thing that surprises me with this is there's not a lot of heat coming out of the front. Now here I've exposed so you can see the 20-degree beam angle and the drop off around it. Now the results seem to be the same regardless of the CCT. However, in colour, the edge of the beam and the drop off are a little bit more merged. And the shadows within 3 meters, well, they're pretty funky. Now this reflector doesn't look all that promising in my workshop, but take it outside into a large area and it really heroes. And when it comes to long throws, this does a pretty good job. Now let's have a look at it through a window at 5 meters. Now this definitely delivers the goods in terms of brightness, but there is some trade-off in terms of the shadows. Now let's do a walkthrough of the CCT range. And now let's have a look at the colour range. Bear in mind again that this is competing with ambient sunlight. Alright, so before we go, a lot of you have been asking, am I going to do a review on the Electrostorm XT26 here? Yes, I am. So I've finally got my hands on this. This is the finished release product. Up until this point in time, I've only had prototypes here in the workshop and I didn't want to review a prototype. Now it's going to take me at least 2 weeks to collect all of the data and do all of the testing. So maybe, definitely not the next episode, maybe the episode after that or the episode after that. Okay, take care everyone.